Tonight's presentation, although edited for YouTube, contains imagery and subject matter some may find disturbing. While our program is educational, we still feel that viewer discretion is advised.
That was Dinner Dancing with Frank Pachowski, a show about a middle-aged man who seems to have a captive audience of salad-eating grandparents. Public access has this weird, almost alien quality to it. Due to a complete lack of regulation, if a show was submitted by a local, it had to be aired. This led to a very human, unfiltered look at the lives of the people who dedicated themselves to this uncanny entertainment. Some of this stuff is actually really entertaining and worth watching on its own and should be celebrated. At the same time, anyone could get anything on the air so long as you weren't committing an actual crime, and many deranged sick people did just that. When researching this topic, you're just as likely to find a surprise Satanist coupled with intense graphic imagery as you are to get something right out of a Tim and Eric sketch. Plus, on the downside, it's dying. In many areas, cable companies no longer have to offer a form of public access for people to display their own creative works. Instead, it's being relegated to mostly just local announcements and general stuff like that, which is a far cry from what we used to have. And I must reiterate here, some of these shows are unironically fun and amazing and insightful, totally worth preserving, which makes this next fact a little bit more hard to swallow. In some cases, entire catalogs of public access shows are literally being destroyed en masse instead of preserved and respected as a cultural landmark in local history, causing us to lose thousands of hours of actually good content. We'll get to that later in the video. However, before we do that, I'd like to introduce today's sponsor. For the past month and a half, I've replaced my old crusty Agretzico wallet, and yes, it's for women, with Exter's premium leather smart wallet. In the past, I opted for a stupid big women's wallet because I would not forget it since it took up so much real estate in my pocket. It would be hard not to remember that thing there. But thanks to Exter, I can now use a wallet with RFID protection, protecting me from identity theft and credit card skimming. This button lets me pop out all my cards, meaning that checkout is a breeze, as opposed to awkwardly fiddling with this broken zipper and the awkward slits. I'm stupid forgetful, likely due to my ADHD. However, because of this additional solar power tracker that you can get, I can ring my wallet and find where it was last seen. Embarrassingly enough, I lost my wallet before filming this segment, and thanks to the ringer function assessed by downloading the Chipolo app, I was able to find it in this stupid big field.
Where is it?
The point I'm trying to make is that I would be in a real bad spot right now if it wasn't for this wallet, and that's cool. I actually really do enjoy this product, and I think it would make a great Christmas gift. And that's not me speaking as a part of a sponsorship, that's me genuinely saying, hey, this made my life like 10% better. If you're interested in supporting the channel and getting a great Christmas gift, use my code CREEPY at checkout and you'll get 35% off your next purchase, which supports me and helps me keep making content. Now with that out of the way, sit back, relax, turn off the lights, and prepare to be scared as we present 12 disturbed and extremely weird public access shows.
Because when the bombs drop, there will be radiation, and radiation creates mutation.
Survivor was a cult hit from Winnipeg, Canada in the early 1980s. The satirical talk show was hosted by Greg Klimke, who donned a purple mask to adopt the comically insane persona of Trevor Winthrop Baines and scream at viewers about an upcoming end of days. More specifically, the credits noted how we must survive the inevitable socio-economic collapse and/or nuclear holocaust. though Trevor also warned about pro-mutant conspiracies plotted by world governments.
Disgusting!
Conglomerates condoning mutinism. Mutinism, yeah. Mutinism? Mutinism.
Now, I'm not trying to sound like a member of the moral majority, but this stinks!
Trevor isn't the only advising prospective doomsday prepper on the show. Appearing as guests and offering their own hilariously bad survival advice is a supporting cast of survivalists rocking their own makeshift apocalypse gear. This supporting cast discusses the ins and outs of preparing to survive the apocalypse with Trevor, performs songs, and even includes some well-known Canadian names such as filmmaker Guy Madden and actor Michael Gottlieb. These skits are actually legitimately quite funny, and the songs have a way of sticking in your brain if you hear them a couple times. Of all the items on the list, we're quite confident in saying Survival. It's probably one of the most fun programs to watch.
I have to say that you'd have to be pretty stupid not to want to survive and live in that beautiful radiated Garden of Eden that we'll be living in after Cataclysm. But it's only going to be that beautiful if you do prepare. A lot of people think they can take a couple of hundred gold Krugerrand, throw it in a sock, and they're prepared. But let me tell you something, buddy. You can have all the gold in the world, but you can't eat it after Cataclysm. And all that gold is not going to buy you freeze-dried wheat, freeze-dried ice cream, freeze-dried chips, freeze-dried pop, all the kind of freeze-dried foods that you need.
Unfortunately, there isn't actually much footage of Survival. What we do have was salvaged by Montreal media artist Daniel Barrow as part of a project called Winnipeg Babysitter. While there actually was, at one time, an official archive of public access TV in Winnipeg, the small local company that ran it was bought out by a large cable provider, which would go on to destroy these archives and decades of cool public access content along with it. These archives contain footage of Survival, as well as works by Carl McCulloch, who was involved with Winnipeg Public Access before he worked on shows like South Park and SpongeBob. Unfortunately, public access and the non-discriminating process which once gave us unique and creative shows like these are dying at the hands of the big three cable companies. For this reason, we should archive this media while we still can, if it's not already too late.
Why would you want to see such horrible images? You love them, but why?
Perhaps one of the most technically impressive shows on our list, especially for the time, The Asylum for Shut-ins was a program that aired in Cleveland in the late 80s, featuring the footage manipulation talents of Ted Zabosian. The program features samples from horror flicks and other disturbed footage, rapidly cutting, looping, and interspersing the intense imagery with monologues delivered by the Doctor, who we'll discuss in more detail later. The reason we call this footage manipulation instead of video editing is because Zabosian lacked access to that kind of software and was only able to achieve the rapid cuts and edits you're seeing with the aid of multiple tape decks, mixers, and patience. The result is unsettling today, but must have been truly horrific to tune into on a late night. When we say that the imagery of The Asylum for Shut-ins is intense, we mean it. Violence, explosions, screaming, vomiting, and electric chair executions are all examples of footage that would be looped, cut, and mixed into the program's titular video psychotherapy. This video psychotherapy is administered by a sunglasses-sporting ventriloquist dummy called the Doctor, who often takes a very hostile and callous tone with his audience. The Doctor is voiced by a friend of Zabosian, Jeff Adam, who Zabosian describes as a, quote, funny improviser and, quote, great camera presence. According to them, the Doctor's character was created to satirize blowhards like talk show host Morton Downey Jr., evangelist Ernest Angley, Ronald Reagan, or, quote, anybody who wielded power and had a big mouth and liked to rule over others. For this reason, the Doctor often demeans and talks down to the viewer, accusing them of loving the sickness, being mad, and requiring the video psychotherapy he provides to become well again.
Before diving into this segment, we'd like to clarify that the host of our next show is no longer with us. Merrill Howard Kalin was a mentally disabled man who passed away in 2008 due to natural causes. However, before his passing, Kalin was given the opportunity to live his best life and star in his own cooking show. While the show may seem strange to us due to Kalin's awkward demeanor and body moans, it must have been perfect by his account, and he likely experienced some of the best years of his life creating it. Thanks to the Little City Foundation for the Mentally Disabled, the Merrill Howard Kalin Show stands as a window into the titular host's creative vision and energetic sense of humor. The Merrill Howard Kalin Show first aired in the early 90s, garnering attention online nearly a decade later as clips from the show were shared on sites like YouTube and 7chan, and even inspiring songs like this as recently as 2019. But what is it about the Merrill Howard Kalin Show that seems to have people so captivated? Seeing found footage from the show makes this phenomenon a little easier to understand. The childlike delight and passion Kalin puts into his cooking is palpable. And even if the dish starts to go south, he presses onward as the show must go on. Take, for instance, this Jell-O mold, which came out bad even though Kalin left it in the refrigerator for a long time. Even as he threatens his fingertips while dicing the spoiled fruits for his unfortunate dessert, Kalin remains upbeat, spicing up the broadcast with celebrity impressions and catchphrases that you just can't help but crack a smile at. While many of these impressions do sound suspiciously similar to one another, it's fun seeing the free-spirited and naturally engaging Kalin have a floor without any other creative interference or interruption. Perhaps the most quotable are his satisfied yet sustained moans, which greatly exceed the reactions your typical person would have to food like this.
So good and tasty?
While we can't say we would eat Kalin's cooking, especially since we don't think he washes hands in between handling raw chicken and crunching up the lettuce for his salad, the food just isn't for us. Instead, the food is simply for the joy of creating and sharing something. The Merrill Howard Kalin Show embodies this attitude. Throughout every broadcast, Kalin seems like he's having a blast, and that can't be taken away from him. Fortunately for the rest of the internet, he has shared this emotion with each archived episode, which I, for one, just have to respect.
That's not funny, that's sick. Is, despite the provocative title, actually not the most disturbing show on this list. It actually falls more into the weird and mildly offensive category. Filmed in Syracuse, New York from 1988 to 1989, That's Not Funny, That's Sick is a skit comedy show that features a cast of amateur actors, sometimes doing poorly acted scripted skits, or just features our host randomly interviewing strangers on the street or in a mall. Now these skits could be as benign as a man sticking loose change up his nose, to a disturbing short film about a Vietnam veteran coming back from the war, only to find out that his girlfriend has dumped him, and that, in combination with him falling on hard times, causes the vet to go on a killing spree. Despite how some of the skits can be seen as offensive by today's standards, for example, the Kung Fu episode has the entire cast wearing fake Asian eyeglasses while they dub over their own lines in a vaguely Chinese accent. It's still endearing to see these people making something they know is bad, just for the fun of it. Clearly, all the creator wanted to do is make some dumb videos with his friends and family, which somehow ended up making it into public access television. The show also features recurring characters such as Skitch, who is a homeless man that sometimes attacks children and other times is running for office. Vote for Skitch, a man of the streets. Captivating. As well as jokes, every episode opens on a messed up joke that's not funny, but sick.
Oh, local programming. Here I am, let me see. No, it's not there yet. Wait a minute. There it is, Mom! There it is!
What?
The Rowdy Comedy Series, That's Not Funny, That's Sick, Fridays, 8:30 p.m. 11 words in the New Times, Mom.
That's it? 11 words? That's what you got all hot and bothered about?
Yeah, but...
11 little
A
words?
heart run, Mom. That
What
was
the hell
more...
is it? And a piece of plastic hanging around your neck?
Oh.
What's the matter with you?
My heart. Oh.
That's not funny.
That's sick.
Oh, no! Please, not again!
The creator of the show runs a Facebook page and has been teasing a reunion special for years, but I'm afraid nothing's come of it as of the writing of this script.
Strangely enough, for a program that asks its viewers to unwind in the title, Unwind with the Sweeties seems specially crafted to induce as much anxiety in the viewer as possible. The characters themselves, played by married couple Gus and Emma Schlischke, are difficult to read and understand in the limited footage we do have. This is due not only to the masks and eyeglasses obscuring their expressions, but the large false teeth that they wear, which makes them difficult to parse, and the loud music and ambient nature sounds, which often drown them out. Throughout the show, the Sweeties can mainly be found seated around a table with the set made to look like they are in some kind of peaceful outdoor space. Here they tell stories, sing songs, and converse with each other, though Gus and Emma will also make forays in town to visit what are presumably local shops and markets. One of the more well-known sketches, Sex Bomb Fantasy, features Gus reading a risque magazine while wearing 3D glasses. This leads to a fantasy sequence where Emma, dressed in an outfit pairing Marilyn Monroe, tells a lewd story about being fawned over by men. In the story, Emma presents herself as naive and inexperienced, taking regular breaks to squeal and writhe around on a large bedspread. Gus is eventually snapped out of his steamy fantasy by Emma, who accuses him of having a private moment. The Sweeties even had their own blog, which continued to post even after the show was cancelled in 2002. In one of the final posts to this blog, titled Gus and Emma Schlischke's Family Reunion Part 1, Emma discusses a road trip, which was presumably meant to take them to the titular family reunion. This blog post contained a graphic picture of a mutilated body, comparing it to how Gus looked after disturbing a mother eagle's nest during their journey. That isn't the only picture of a dead body on the blog, as photos like these seem to be used to make jokes at Gus's expense about him getting injured or maimed, which is to say nothing about the disrespect inherent in using photographs of real corpses for a joke. Eventually, the post was taken down, and the Sweeties went dark, only posting once more on a new blog in 2020 to acknowledge the decade of inactivity.
I said that may be true, but I know someone who will see, and that's God.
While many of the items on our list are unsettling due to bizarre and grotesque themes, or just the general bootleg low-budget quality of public access shows, something much darker lingers below the surface of a Christian variety show called Joy Junction. This show features multiple performers who engage a live audience of children with stories, songs, and activities which reinforce Christian values. One of these performers was a ventriloquist named Ronald William Brown, who also ran his own side business performing with his puppets for children at schools, churches, and birthday parties. On Joy Junction, Brown performed with his puppet called Marty, forming the duo Ron and Marty. The puppet is creepy, as one might expect, especially as we see him through this corrupted footage from the mid-80s. What nobody knew at the time, however, was that the man behind a marionette was harboring dangerous fantasies towards the young boys who visited Joy Junction. In spring 2013, almost 30 years after Joy Junction, Ronald Brown appeared on the radar of Homeland Security agents investigating Michael Arnett, who had been communicating and exchanging CP through chat rooms and instant messengers online. One of these services included Yahoo Chat Instant Messenger, where Arnett and Brown discussed with one another their plans to kidnap, dismember, and cannibalize young children and toddlers. Transcripts of these chat logs were included in the affidavit, which was submitted by an HSI agent in support of an arrest warrant against Ronald Brown, and is one of the most twisted things I've ever read, which is written about a real-life child. When acting on this warrant, agent sees electronic media in Brown's home, including a computer, CDs, DVDs, microdisc, VHS tapes, mini VHS tapes, and a thumb drive. Agents proceeded to preview evidence on site, confirming that the media contained extremely graphic CP. According to James D. Whitmore of the U.S. District Court in Tampa, perverted is not strong enough of a word to describe what you have been engaging in. Horrific? That's getting close. Unimaginable? That's getting even closer. Thankfully, further investigation revealed that no children had been harmed by Brown or the sick fantasies he discussed with other predators online. This is only a meager comfort since the unbridled access to children Brown had through his shows and church functions left plenty of opportunities for unreported abuse. The case of Ronald Brown also begs the question, when does fantasy cross the line and become a threat? One thing is for certain, that revisiting Joy Junction in retrospect will never be the same. Knowing that Ron was engaged in such twisted debauchery behind the scenes, and that it was likely he was fantasizing about the very same children appearing on his show, creates this unnerving feeling of anxiety. The kids on screen that you're watching now were in very real danger, and the feeling is palpable. At least we can rest easy knowing that Ronald William Brown will never be allowed access to children again, even after he's done serving his sentence.
The video "What's Your Problem" has been an enigma since the early days of YouTube, with people speculating the meaning and origin of the strange clip from as early as 2006. It features a solitary young man attempting to eat an entire raw fish with a plastic fork. The fish is yanked off of the plate each time he tries to stab it with his fork, while a pre-recorded voice repeatedly alternates between asking, "What is wrong with you?" and "What's your problem?" The young man spends the duration of the 3-minute clip defending himself against the voice, insisting that he doesn't have any problems, while becoming increasingly frustrated. This lack of context made What's Your Problem an internet mystery which wouldn't be solved till only 3 years ago in 2018. Thanks to the efforts of the Lost Media Wiki team, we now have confirmation that What's Your Problem was actually a skit on a larger program that aired in Tarrytown, New York, during late evenings in 1985. The source program seems to be a series of short, absurdist vignettes, the current archive of which can now be viewed on YouTube. The other sketches in the program also make frequent use of repetition and the pre-recorded voice from earlier, though they don't feature the same actor. The fact that so many phrases and actions are repeated in these sketches, such as
Well, yeah, but
and
are we having fun yet?
and of course,
What's your problem?
has caused some to speculate that this is done intentionally to reference the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. The low fidelity and low budget production, along with the complete lack of explanation or context, does give these sketches a schizophrenic atmosphere after all. Even more interesting is the influence that What's Your Problem had on the Pittsfield community TV, since PCTV executive producer Garrett McCary brought it with him from Tarrytown in 1988. Apparently, PCTV must have found the clip to be significant or inspirational in some way, since the What's Your Problem skit would be played each week to bookend that week's productions, which would explain how the program eventually surfaced on YouTube, as well as why it was speculated to have originated from either Pittsfield or Tarrytown. As PCTV matured, What's Your Problem eventually went off the air, entering the digital archive in 2013 when the VHS was converted to MPEG. Now, it stands as a piece of public access history.
The vast majority of public access shows one can find is usually religious in nature. Your local church does some outreach, films it, and uses the same cues to promote their program. That's not to say there was a shortage of programs submitted, just that religious and political organizations can often get their content on multiple different stations in many different states, due to the same outreach we just talked about. This inevitably brings up a disturbing side to having a public square where anyone can say and do anything as long as it's not illegal. Race and Reason was created by Tom Metzinger, who history will remember as a monster. Whether it's his involvements with the murder of an Ethiopian man, which he encouraged through his organization of skinheads, or the years he spent in the Klan as the Grand Dragon of California, Metzinger certainly made his barbaric mark on history. He encouraged people to patrol the border in order to capture individuals trying to cross, likely committing more racially motivated crimes in the process. Eventually, Metzinger moved on to make his own congregation of horrible people, which eventually grew into WAR, or the White Aryan Resistance. This is where Race and Reason comes in. Using his connections with the Klan, Metzinger got his own public access show at zero cost to himself. Many members would contribute their own equipment, time, and everything else was covered by donations from Metzinger's congregation. The show lasted longer than most would think, quickly gaining more than 50 episodes. It's unsure how many were produced, since it was rare for a single station to play the whole collection. Back in the day, if a city had a public access station, they had to air anything and everything submitted to them by locals. The station would only be able to cancel the airing if it was directly trying to incite a riot. Since the Klan and Metzinger's own group, WAR, were spread across the United States, Race and Reason was aired all over California, Missouri, Washington, and I'm sure if we kept looking we could find it elsewhere. The show, which is now entirely lost, would often have controversial guests who would say all kinds of racist shit and make derogatory claims towards ethnic people, although they draw the line at actual cussing. Way to keep the priorities straight, guys. Many broadcasts reportedly open with the burning of a cross. On the subject of racism in public access, here's what Metzinger had to say. Quote, 3 years ago, when cable was getting off the ground, I realized that public access channels were perfect for views like mine that were having trouble getting expressed. In response, many communities shut down their public access stations in order to avoid having to showcase this material, despite Metzinger's attempts to sue. In 2020, Tom Metzinger passed away due to Parkinson's. And on the subject of his show, we're sure if you are in the right circles, you can find it. But some things are better off lost.
At first glance, Mystic Kids Funtime could be seen as a trippy exercise in wacky call-in stoner humor, like some of the lighter entries on our list.
What city are you representing tonight, Mike?
Berrien.
Are you prepared to take a fat rip here?
Hell yeah!
Oh, we got a whole bunch of people in the house.
Go ahead and fire away, Mike.
They having one in Olympia, too?
However, looking into the creator and watching more than just selectively curated skits shows a darker side to this underground show. The host is a temporal demon guru puppet elemental, according to his creator, which speaks in a vaguely Asian accent about moral truths and spiritual guidance. This guidance comes in the form of encouraging his audience to get nude or look at drawn images of women giving birth, as well as other morally gray shenanigans.
Quickly, fill your nostrils with salt.
Oh, it feels good.
How about
Caller, you must fill your nostrils with salt.
Fill your nostrils with salt.
Fill
Look
your
at the
nostrils.
presents. That last caller, Mystic Guru.
I hope he gets
smelled
a
like
bar.
Wisconsin State
Yes,
cheese.
I understand completely. Where am I now? As I said to myself.
Luckily, unlike some other shows on our list, this was pretty late at night, and clearly everything is done for the sake of edgy humor, and to be fair, it's not even that bad compared to what I can find on the internet. However, I should note if you're going to check it out anyway, there's a lot of disturbing imagery and nudity on the show, most of which, for obvious reasons, I can't show on YouTube while still getting paid. If you check out the Pup Toes YouTube channel and get a good look at that YouTube banner, you might get an idea of what I'm talking about. Mystic Kids Funtime, later renamed to the Church of Pup Toes, ran from 1998 to 2014 late at night. According to the creator, Ross Wilsey, Mystic Kids Funtime is for nihilist stooges hoping for an end to all of this, and hopes for the collapse of institutions and incorrect belief cycles related to the Wheel of Time. Oddly enough, Googling the show doesn't yield any concrete answers since no one has really been archiving this. That said, after reaching out to the creator, watching this interview from The Alright Show,
Ryan, dude, I'm so sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I can't do the rest of the season. I can't even do this show. We're going on tour right now. The jet's outside. We're going to Japan. Konnichiwa, brother. I gotta go. I just came by to wish you congratulations and good luck on the rest of the season. And I'm gonna need my hat back. Yeah. Sorry about that. I gotta go right now. I'm late. Okay. See ya. Konnichiwa, dude. We'll figure it out.
and reading an interview from Austin.com, I learned enough about the man behind the cheap masking tape and crude, disturbing animations to fill a whole wiki article. Ross did not only create Mystic Kids Funtime, later renamed to the Church of Pup Toes to avoid confusion, but also a feature-length film called Valley of Robots, and he's currently working on a show called Pup Toes Street, which is a crude satire of sitcoms where, in his own words, morals are non-existent and every character is outrageously absurd and obscene. During an interview with Austin.com, Ross expresses some of his more punk beliefs. When asked, "When did you start building puppets?" Ross said, "I was working as a fax machine refurbisher and found a bag of tension springs. I felt suicidally low and loved the godlike artifice of it. Scrapping common sense, I decided to make a public access show and share my sickness with everyone else." He also went on to add that he likes to keep the budget of each of his shows to around $10. Ross goes on to say that he hopes in 5 years' time, Pup Toes will be the biggest hit ever, or at the very least generating some sort of sex cult. The interview was in 2015, and while his views aren't currently the biggest ever, based on these responses, I can't rule out there being a cult. However, all jokes aside, the Church of Pup Toes was canceled due to the cable company downsizing and shutting down at midnight. This, coupled with a myriad of technical issues and a shrinking TV viewership, unfortunately led to the end of this bizarre show. Before ending the segment, I did want to add one thing. Ross says that his favorite part about making the show is when people even remember that he made it in the first place. I mean, he dedicated over 20 years of his life to this. He says, "I think sometimes I'm dissolving and turning invisible, and it helps me stay tied to this rotten planet. Otherwise, I might fall straight up into the sky." And good news for him, we here remember the absolute satanic insanity that is the Mystic Kids Funtime.
This one is pretty infamous on the internet, but some new information came to light that we'd like to share. For those who don't know, The Great Satan at Large is a public access call-in show. Everything is extremely mean-spirited, so if you do call in, odds are you're going to get made fun of and insulted. However, unlike The Jerk Beast, where the whole point is to be a fun punk show that isn't taken seriously, Satan here is just kind of degenerate with zero charisma. With only 2 episodes, both of which are now found, but let me get into that later, The Great Satan at Large could be divided into 2 segments. The story bits, which usually features Satan and whomever he can get on the show, interacting in an awkward and mean-spirited manner. Everyone's just super submissive to the host while he acts like a dick and makes the whole vibe of the show uncomfortable. And then you have the call-in segments, where you call in and the host finds a way to make fun of you. Except it's not really clever or entertaining. The typical person that would call into the show was super racist or just offended. I mean, if you're religious, listening to a man yell about how he's going to burn every church in Tucson might actually be very disturbing, at least to you. Meanwhile, the heavy use of the swastika and World War II footage attracted actual, well, you know, the usual suspects. What shot this show into infamy is undoubtedly the heavy use of sexual content. Everyone appears to be blue-screened and they usually put on random horror movie footage and KIF films in the background. This sexual content eventually landed the cast, including Satan, also known as Lou Perfidio, in legal trouble. In the Israel 666 episode, which I really don't suggest looking up, but it is found, a character features called the Sexecutioner, who fondles a 17-year-old on what was then live TV. Lou was 28 at the time, and that 17-year-old was married to the adult that was doing this. While normally you can't censor or pull a show under most circumstances, the fact is that this is quite literally illegal material being broadcasted at 6 p.m. on a Sunday.
Has banned one of its programs for 3 months. The show is called Great Satan at Large. It had been airing at 6 p.m., but the cable company received so many complaints that the show is going to be moved to another time slot late at night. Public access TV cannot censor a program, but it can move it to another time. Many of the complaints concern the program's graphic sexual nature.
Now, despite Lou Perfidio's attempts at coming back, he never really did. He got a 90-day suspension from the TCCC, the Tucson Cable Company Corp., along with hefty fines from the court and a possible short stint in jail for contributing to this delinquency of a minor. To be clear, he distributed CP in a way similar to the Guy game on Xbox. This has nothing to do with his religious views or opinions expressed on the show. A year after the last episode aired, he appeared as Satan on other public access shows, but according to the cable company, it's a first-come, first-served basis, and there were plenty of people in front of Lou. Eventually, he moved on, and the last article we could find mentions he became a cab driver in Miami. In summary, The Great Satan at Large is a really offensive show that says nothing. It's a middle-aged man surrounding himself with Nazi memorabilia, screaming about how people want to shut him down. If people didn't hate him, there wouldn't really be a show. At least outside of the very illegal material they broadcasted, which we found. Rest in hell, Lou.
It's okay to experiment. It's okay to fail. And you never know, you might learn something from the process.
Let's Paint TV has gone by many titles, including Let's Paint, Exercise, and Blend Drinks TV, Let's Paint, Exercise, and Play Ping Pong TV, or whatever other wacky activities the host has decided to conduct while painting pictures and running on a treadmill, all at the same time. Between the iconic paint-stained Brooks Brothers suits, the often mean-spirited callers who connect to the show without being screened, and the trippy way the show is edited, you might be forgiven for thinking that Let's Paint TV is some kind of Tim and Eric style comedy sketch. Instead, it's the product of a man with a deep love for the artistic process. It's exactly what it claims to be, but also much more. The man you see sweating away and desperately trying to keep up with the pace of his own hyperactive show is an LA artist by the name of John Kilduff. Not only has Kilduff studied improv comedy and fine arts, but he also received a degree in fine arts from UCLA in 2008, which was the same year that LA Public Access Studios shut down, necessitating the transition to an online formats for the show. Despite the fact that being an artist in LA is perhaps one of the worst lots that one can draw in life, Kilduff is relentlessly upbeat during his shows. Maybe it's just the runner's high talking to him, but between his panting and gasping for air, Kilda proclaims his love for creativity and experimentation in the artist process. This positivity is extended to those who call into the show, even though these callers often take advantage of the fact that the calls aren't screened, to feel the rush of saying a swear on TV, or worse yet, to make fun of our host. Even the most obscene callers rarely face Kilduff, who carries on in his friendly Billy Mays voice, never missing a beat. The idea to give instructional art television a more hyperactive spin initially came to Kilduff while he was working on a different public access comedy show. He thought it might look funny to ride an exercise bike while painting at the same time. This would later change to a much more feasible treadmill, and became an enduring part of Kilduff's performances, as seen on other television shows and in art fairs around the SoCal area. This reflects the views that Kilduff espouses. Sometimes the ideas that give us the most success are born of spontaneity, by just throwing paint to the canvas and seeing what sticks, while also exercising and blending drinks.
Created by David Liet and starring Brooke Robinson and Sally Liet, The Worst Show aired on Paragon Cable Channel 18 in San Antonio, Texas. It was a skit comedy show that featured politically incorrect humor similar to The Whitest Kids You Know, which aired on IFC. Unlike the WKUK, however, The Worst Show is much worse, has nothing real to say, and is filmed almost exclusively in the living room of David Liet's house, with jokes ranging from crude and a little funny to, and this is a quote from a student newspaper, brutally racist and or sexist. Often, minorities were the subject of mockery from this all-white cast of characters. Most skits were filmed spur of the moment whenever one of the three got an idea, because workshopping a joke makes it lose its humor somehow. One skit that was written about in great detail involves the cast driving around in a car, only to turn the camera on in order to capture Sally making fun of overweight people leaving a yogurt shop. Another tasteless skit involves the cast doing a parody of Terminator, this time dubbed the Jubbinator. Jubba being deep lore on this show and exclusive to their show, which is slang for African American people. And instead of killing Sarah Connor, the Jubbinator kills... yeah, you get the idea. Tasteless humor is the name of the game here. David Liet saved one of his good clips on his now abandoned YouTube channel, clearly using some sort of ripping program to either rip these off of a VHS or off of Paragon TV's website. One of the videos, titled "The Correct Way to Call Your Cat," features the actors, likely Brooks, trying to call a cat. When the camera pans out, surprise, cat pancake, the cat's dead. Isn't that really funny? The tasteless humor continues on to other lost segments. When researching, I found a reference to two disturbing episodes that caused a huge stir. One being the bomb episode, and the other being the suicide episode. In the former, the skit, according to a few different sources, was an actual step-by-step guide on how to make an acid bomb. Unfortunately, a few days after the episode aired, a device made similarly to the one on the show had gone off on the front porch of a police officer's house. Months later, the suicide episode aired, which, again, the joke is nothing more than actual step-by-step instructions on how to game end yourself, whether it be by knife, gun, or noose. Like we previously mentioned, any locally produced shows had to be aired if submitted. That said, Paragon TV started to shuffle around The Worst Show and did not label when it would be on to avoid letting teens get access to this content, which was already causing real-world harm in their community. In response, David said, "If anybody had an IQ above 20, people would realize it's a joke. Unfortunately, we're dealing with Councilman Thornton, who doesn't know the difference between a live frog and a dead frog. He's just headline hungry." Despite the controversy and setbacks, Brooks had aspirations to join the military, but it's unclear if he actually did. Sally and David Leatt kept making the show until they took it as far as they possibly could. The last mention we could find of it was from David Leatt himself in 2007, saying that it had moved to Channel 20. He also mentioned selling DVDs and other merch. However, the interesting thing to note is that theworstshow.com had been down since the year 2002, meaning that David must have been selling his merch on a different site, which we've been unable to find. I guess it's possible that this show could be found, but the real question is, who would want to? If The Worst Show is the worst program to air on public access television, then the bong hit World Championship with Mark Farkle and co-host Izzy is clearly the exact opposite. In late 90s Seattle, the pair would appear on Channel 29 Hotline Studio every Friday to accept calls from viewers and generally spread good vibes. Those who called in would give their name and represent their municipality in the bong hit World Championship. Once Mark gave that iconic signal to fire away, the caller would start to rip their bong audibly over the phone so that the hit could be timed with a stopwatch. Achieving the longest rip meant that you would have the honor of Mark ringing a little bell just for you. Unfortunately, things weren't always bong clouds and good times. The show's detractors were many, and sometimes they even called into the program to question whether there was anything socially redeeming about the show or its hosts.
Well, yes, you get to interact with me and Izzy.
Uh-huh.
So?
In what way is that socially redeeming?
I don't know. You give me your phone number and we can make it socially redeeming here.
Give her your. He wants your phone number.
Not only were our adorable hosts mistreated, but cheating was also rampant during the championship, giving questionable credibility to their judging expertise. I mean, do you really expect me to believe that someone inhaled their smoke for 69 uninterrupted seconds without fudging it? I think not. The Bong Hit World Championship is like Wayne's World in real life, but for stoners, kinda like Wayne's World. The show made heavy use of layering effects where multiple feeds were overlaid one another in order to create the trippy effect that you see on screen. Sometimes they would use these separate feeds to zoom in on props around the set, like this frog, which according to the hosts, we're just supposed to look at.
Nothing, just stare at it. Oh yeah.
According to the commenters reminiscing on a YouTube video archiving one of these absolutely legendary broadcasts from 1997, this show embodies the spirit of Seattle. To which we say, yeah, man. Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, before you click out this video, I want to say just a few things and get a few things off my chest, if that's alright. To start off, I do apologize for all the drama videos lately. I assure you that that's not the direction this channel is going in, but rather just a unhappy, unholy alignment of events happening all at once. These last few months have been particularly trying just because of stuff going on at home, but I assure you we're going back onto a normal schedule, and we should have another video out by this month known as The Disturbing Game Iceberg Part 1. There's absolutely no way I'm doing that all in one go. I gotta go deal with my dog that's been having seizures, so without further ado, let's thank the people that make these videos possible at all by allowing me to float during the months where ad revenue might not be great, or, you know, just generally funding some of the background elements of the channel, including our fully original OST. To start us off in our absolutely insane into membrane insanity tier, we got Ali Elman and Jamie D. At $75, a golden machete is Tara Workman. At the $50 Rev Chainsaw tier, we got Willow Firefox. At the $20 Hungry Scythe, we got Alani. Chicken Permission, I'm not calling you Chicken Parmesan like I did in the last 4 takes, Irene Dillian, and Kelly Marsh. In the Rusty Razor category, at $15, we got Angelina Brown, Eddie Toxpin. And then at the $10 Silver Hatchet tier, we got Giblet, Kyle Clark, Ronin the Reckless, Small Ducky, and Temperator, also known as Tempe. And then also like the rest of the people. These guys is what basically makes everything happen between feeding my McDonald's addiction and helping me pay the electric bill, which allows me to keep making videos. Seriously, you guys have like come and helped so much, and from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank you. There's a possible chance I might have missed you along the way because it took me a while to get this video out. If I happen to miss you, feel free to message me on Discord. Patrons get access to all the music that they helped fund for free, as well as the album that I have out now, and some exclusive stuff that I won't be releasing for a while. Donating any amount of money gives you free access to my Patreon exclusive Discord, where you can request the game with me at any time, regardless if you're a current patron or not. Currently, I've been playing a lot of Guilty Gear Strive, so if you want to kick my ass, there's your incentive. Now that that's out of the way, it's time for me to sign off and finally get some sleep.